Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great, as I always say, following the 3 H's of the channel and all that good stuff. And in this video, I have quite a collection of encounters for you. There's a little bit of everything here, so if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me, and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. I want to talk about when I saw them being the Greys. I've only seen them a handful of times, and so has my dad. Once, I was at the beach in South Padre Island. This was at night with a few friends. Myself and 2 other people who were sleeping in the car left the car because we couldn't sleep. We decided to go for a walk. While walking through the dunes, I started to feel paranoid and really strange. I'm not sure how to describe it, but you can feel when they're around, and they know when you think about them. We kept walking for a little bit, and we started to head back, but I couldn't shake the feeling at all. On our way back, I could see their outlines in the dunes. I started to freak out, and they started moving away from us. One of my friends got his cell phone flashlight and shined it in their direction. This was the worst idea ever. The light didn't go far enough to see them, but it did reflect off their eyes. That was probably the most effed up thing I have ever experienced. Nothing but pure terror. Those eyes are horrifying. We hauled ass back to the car, woke everyone up, and took off because no way we're staying out there with those things. I don't really feel very comfortable going back to the beach at night, but if you want to see some weird shit like it, I recommend it. If you just go out there and think about them and call them to you, they'll come. You'd be surprised how much strange stuff you see in the night sky out there. I'm from Florida, born and raised. I have a few stories. Some are mine, some are my mother's. She's told me about several weird things from when she was younger. This one was one that happened when she was still living with her parents. My grandparents. My grandparents lived in, and at the time of writing this, still do, live in a rural area surrounded by forest, so wildlife like deer, small mammals, boar, and even small bears are pretty common. For a few nights in a row, something had been getting into a compost bin, so they tied some tin cans to it to catch whatever it was in the act. It was mostly scraps from cooking, so they thought that maybe it was a raccoon or something similar. They heard the cans rattling the next night. They ran to see what it was. Her dad opened the door and almost immediately slammed it shut again. He looked at it and grabbed the shotgun. Even though they told her to stay inside, my mom's curiosity got the better of her, and she looked through the window and could clearly see something that she described as looking like a person, but as tall as the back porch roof, which on its surface doesn't sound too intimidating until you realize that the roof is 10 feet high. There was no light on the back porch though, so they could only see an outline plus whatever their flashlight could do. The next morning, she heard her parents talking about it, saying that it definitely wasn't some kind of animal, at least not from these parts, as they were saying. Her dad was a hunter, so he likely would have known if it were a big bear or something. Growing up, I had always assumed that it was a black bear, since they're spotted in the area sometimes. I figured that her as a kid just exaggerated it. But the other weekend was one of my first times going to my grandparents as an adult, and I realized that the porch is indeed taller than I thought it was. It is indeed 10 feet tall, and when I asked them about the story, they told me basically what she told me. It really freaked me out. I don't know what kind of thing that they saw. This happened to me and my friend. We were living in a tiny town of maybe 2,000 people or so at the time. In our music phase, during sophomore year at this time, my friend has a garage that we use for like a jam shack. And while we're in there, listening to music, laughing and going on, we begin to hear yelling from the backyard. We immediately think, oh God, what the hell's going on out there? It sounds like a person trying to speak. The wailing and yelling gets so bad that nobody wants to party at the garage anymore. And this continues intermittently for weeks. My friend's dad is basically going crazy for it. He wakes up in the middle of the night to yell back. He says, I'm so sorry, I can't help you. Now I was staying the night at this time, and we listened closely. It sounded vaguely now, like whoever was yelling, help me. We freak out, and we insist that we have to investigate. We go behind the neighbor's house. There's a cage there. The cage is blocked by plywood, so we can't see in. We approach it, and the yelling stops. And then we hear this awful, ragged breathing. We run back to the house and call the cops. The cops show up. Next door is an old Mexican couple who insist that they have nothing, and the cage isn't theirs, and what's inside of it isn't human. The cops do some kind of investigation. They wouldn't tell us anything. You'd think if there was a person inside that they would just break open the cage, but they didn't do that. They loaded the whole thing up on a truck, and the couple moved out of there very shortly after. To this day, none of us have any idea what the hell was going on. Back when me and my girlfriend first started dating, she wasn't aware of how into the paranormal and all that stuff that I actually am. Before we lived together, we used to have long conversations while we were out driving. You know, the stuff you do in a small town. And she told me this one weird event that happened when she was younger that she still can't really explain. And she's not the type of person anyways to just kind of lurk around those parts of the internet or listen to those YouTube channels. But anyway, this is the gist of what happened. Her brother was a Cub Scout, and he was several years younger than my girlfriend. They were going on this big scout trip down in the valley. It's in our home province. I don't remember what it's called. There was a whole crowd of people. Well over 20 kids, and the scoutmaster, well, this was his first time ever taking the kids out on a camping trip by himself. So the first day of the trip goes completely smoothly. They do all kinds of activities. On the second day, they decide to go on a hike, and the scoutmaster says that he's already been up the trail and plotted out where they're going. But about a mile into said hike, they're hit with an awful smell when they entered this boulder field. The smell was so bad that he says, okay, there's probably a dead animal around here. We should just turn around and go back to camp. On the way back though, some of the younger kids start crying for some reason, saying that they're scared, but they won't tell anybody. Especially this one kid won't tell anybody what he's scared of. They find it best just to haul it back to the camp as quickly as they can. and for the rest of the day, they just chill and try to forget about earlier. They do some kinds of activities, including the scoutmaster showing everyone how to build a fire. My girlfriend says it sucked because she sat next to some weird kid at the fire, and the smell from before enters the campsite. Some of the kids begin to freak out again, not cry, but when like a kid is scared and they just want to go home and stuff, they won't leave their parents' side. Later that night though, my sister is talking to her dad and her dad is chatting with some of her parents when he talks about how one of the parents is being a super weirdo and won't talk or eat, just stares at you. My girlfriend brings up the whole thing about the kid being super weird, especially when they were building the fire. The kid looked at it like he had never seen it before. He just stared with his mouth agape as the flames came on. Now, at some point before bed, the smell goes away for the night, and they think that must be the end of the weird occurrences, so they all go to sleep, and the next day, the smell is still gone, but the parents are now looking around, pretty concerned. Some food items are now missing, including a scout uniform that one of the other kids had changed out of to change into his sleep clothes. Some of the other kids are saying that something was trying to get into their tent last night, but it's like it couldn't figure out how to unzip the zipper. The scoutmaster does the roll call, and everyone's there, but the two from the other night are still missing. She tells me that all of this happened in probably 1992 or so. Her brother doesn't remember much, just being really afraid at night and the really bad smell, and one of the kids yelling, "There's something out there in the dark." Basically, it seems that somebody or something posing as somebody seems to have snuck into their group and ate their food and stole their clothes and left again. I suppose it's worth noting that both my girlfriend and her brother have a horrible fear of camping now, especially being in the woods at night. They will pretty much lock up with fear, like a deer in the headlights. Either way, her story freaked me out. When I was 19, the winter was coming around, so I moved back in with my parents because they had a wood stove and they were starting to get into their older years and were unable to get up and down the stairs as well, so they couldn't chop wood and make fires. I've had weird experiences in the house, around the forest, and just the property in general. Footprints in the snow suddenly disappearing, children's laughter at night while I'm taking my dog out, and forms in the dark. Just stuff like that all the time. Anyways, it was around midnight. I was playing Bunny Black 2. Don't judge me. I go into the creepy basement to put the fire back on. It's a very stereotypical creepy basement. Only half the lights work, everything creaks. There's rooms down there that are creepy and dark. There's loud pipes that pump water in and out of the house. Anyways, the fire had kind of died down since it had been a few hours since I last loaded it up. I needed to chop some more logs. It's midnight, but my family can be assholes, so I chop a few logs right there, making as much noise as I want. At this point, I begin to feel like I'm being watched down there. I'm holding a 15-pound chopping maul. Because of this, I'm not too bothered. I could take the head off anything that came near me in a single stroke. We have a cat and 3 dogs in the house. The cat comes down the stairs to check on all the noise I'm making. After rubbing up against me, it suddenly starts yowling, and the hair stands up on it, and he bolts for upstairs. I've seen that cat pick fights with coyotes and walk away with nary a mark. I'm getting kind of freaked out at this point. Then I start to hear more noises. It's mostly just rustling, but I also hear some barely audible laughter. It's very faint, almost inaudible. Now the hair on my neck is standing up. I load up the wood stove as fast as I can. Lots of smoke because it was mostly medium strength coals in there. Don't care. I fill that thing to the brim, and then I turn the cooling fan to medium, and I run upstairs as fast as I can. One of the dogs and my cat are waiting for me at the top of the stairs. Now, they hate each other, but in this moment, they're literally on top of one another. As I'm turning off the lights to the basement, I see a smallish form crawl from underneath the stairs. My first reaction is to stare. My second reaction is to throw the splitting maul at it. I decide not to, and I bolt to my room. If I ever missed from throwing the maul at it, I wanted a weapon, so that's why I didn't throw it. I lock my door. I can hear the thing creeping up the basement stairs, opening the door, walking through the kitchen, and then exiting the front door. I check my window, and I see it running across our lawn toward the highway and the swamp on the other side of the street. I didn't sleep well yesterday. I still managed to fall asleep around 3 a.m. The lights on, of course. Here's the creepiest thing. I woke up this morning. My bedside lamp was off. There's many things wrong with that. The light was off, my door was locked, and I doubt I turned it off in my sleep. The switch was jammed with the button facing away from me, between the wall and my dresser. I had to move the dresser to get it unstuck. And number 3, it was wrapped in a blanket that I kept on the floor for my dog. Does anyone know what the hell happened and what the hell that thing was? This happened way back in sophomore year of high school when I was living up in Massachusetts. I was 16, like I said, sophomore year. My parents didn't really like guns, but after much convincing, they bought me a bow. It was a beautiful 45-pound recurve bow. I always felt like a total badass shooting with it. I became a pretty good shot over the course of about 6 months. It's not uncommon for me to grab a knife and sneak out at night after they're asleep just to go for a walk in the woods. One night, I decided to go and bring my recurve bow with me to go out with that, maybe shoot at a tree or something. I sling it over my shoulder and I shimmy down the drain pipe. I was on the 2nd floor. And even just doing that, I'm already feeling like a total commando, like unstoppable. I get down to the ground, I unsling it, I knock an arrow, and I start walking off into the woods. It's a combination deciduous and coniferous woods, but there isn't a lot of brush because of how little light comes through to the ground. It's dark as hell underneath the trees. I allow time for my eyes to adjust. As always, I feel uneasy using a flashlight late at night. It always feels like it's going to give away where I am or something, just an irrational fear of mine. I hear a noise. I bring the bow up. An owl swoops by, and I thought, holy crap, that's cool. And then another. I'm thinking, I've never seen 2 owls do this before. And then I see another bird, and then another. And then, after a few moments of this, it seems like every bird in the forest is flying away from the same direction. I hear some rabbits and deer in the distance doing the same thing. I wondered what they were all running from, especially at this time of night. My curiosity overcame my common sense, and I decided I had to check it out. I'm walking slowly, doing a constant 360-degree threat scan. Then, I hear a loud snuffling sound coming from this big briar thicket that I've not seen before. I figured it was a boar, but still, I didn't want to bother it. Boar can be scary. I put the arrow back in the quiver and the bow over my back. I climb up a nearby pine and get as high as I can. I'm looking down now into the briar patch. Suddenly, it looks like the boar is coming out. Big patches of the briar are getting torn apart or pulled out of the way. Something comes out of the briar. It's not a boar, but it is about 6 feet long from nose to tail. It looks like a cross between a boar, an ape, and a bear, all put together. It looks like some kind of experiment or something gone wrong. It has a long, tapered snout, a fat nose at the end, really shaggy hair on its head that covered most of the eyes from what I could see. It's really buff in the shoulders, like incredibly big. The smaller lower body is sort of a hoof-foot type thing on the back. The front legs and arms looks like gorilla arms basically, really buff and almost humanoid hands on the front. It moves sort of like a primate too, that weird shamble two-legged walk thing and the knuckle walk. I'm shaking at this point, trying to figure out what the hell that this thing is and hoping that it can't climb trees. It makes a noise. It sounds like the snuffling that boars make. And then suddenly, it says, "Is anyone there?" in the most gravelly, deepest voice I've ever heard. And then, "I can help you." It looks around, snuffles for a bit, especially at the base of the tree that I'm in, and then it starts to wander off. I've been absolutely terrified this whole time, slowly pulling my bow off my back. I knock an arrow and I get ready to shoot. A dead twig snaps in the tree. The thing turns its head instantly. It turned it so quick I thought it broke its neck or something. Instantly, it starts circling my tree again, snuffling like mad. I take a deep breath. I scooch out further on the branch so I can get a clear shot. I draw, I touch an anchor point, I aim, and release. I aimed well. I hit it right in the head. Almost directly where the eye was, I thought. But it was weird. The sound it made was like metal hitting stone. The thing snuffles a bit more, this time almost like it was laughing at me, and then it gradually wanders off. I stayed up in that tree until morning. I barely managed to get back home before my parents came in to wake me up. They wondered why I looked so shaken and tired. So, what'd you think of those? Let me know which one was your favorite one down in the comments. Do you have one of your own? As I usually say, I have an email in the description below that you can send them to if you want to. And if you would like to donate to the channel in some way, I have a PayPal and a Patreon there too. You can also use the Super Thanks button below the video. It's up to you though, no pressure. And with all that, I hope that you liked the video, and if you do, then consider liking and subscribing. And if you like this video and you're new to the channel, Or, since YouTube doesn't seem to recommend some of my videos anymore, then I'm gonna put a couple up here, and you can watch those if you want to. Again, it's up to you. And I think I will see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump, and thank you for watching.